Alright, welcome back everybody to another episode of Remaking Sands of Time in a data pack. We're going to start off today's episode here in my redstone junkyard because there's something in here that I've been working on that will transfer over into our game. I have this command block here, so when I flip this lever, it actually summons a item display, which is an entity that displays an item. Look at that. So this one has a netherite axe with efficiency 5. So you can see that glowing, the enchantment there. And I've worked out a way so that when I walk into it, I actually pick it up and it goes in my inventory and it holds like the same enchantments and all the whatnot, fancy things. So if I had named it something else, it would be in there as well. So that's pretty cool. Now we can position this entity in whatever angle we want. So if I wanted this axe to be sticking into the ground, then I can do that and it would look cool. Now the way this actually works is with light blocks. You'll see that if I don't have a light block here and I try to pick up the item, it doesn't work because it's just a display item. But as soon as I put a light block here, and I can even like change how bright this light is, as soon as I do that and I walk into the block, pick up the item. So there's really only 3 components to how this is playing out. The first thing is an advancement. There's this cool criteria trigger called enter block. And so I basically am using the light block as a way to detect when the player moves into a certain block. I find this really handy because the light block can be a light of 0, and so it's basically acting as an invisible block that the player has no idea exists and will just walk into as a trigger. And then for the reward, I just run a function. Now this function right here, first it just looks at all the nearby item displays in this block and then make sure that it sets it as air. And then it will run a give item function with itself. So whatever data this item display held in this item tag will be applied to this function. All this function does is give the nearest player the item that the display item had with any additional NBT data associated with it and however much was in the stack. And then finally it just kills the display item and then revokes the advancement so that the player can walk into another block of light and trigger it all over again. Now that's all fine and dandy and it works really well, but there is a problem. In some of the more recent snapshots for the game, Mojang has been significantly changing the NBT data structures for item stacks. Namely, they're changing it so that we're now using components instead of NBT tag data. There's some various benefits to this system, and it's still in development, but it basically means that a lot of what we currently have and did have from previous episodes won't work anymore until we update it to the new system here. So we'll have to update things like our loot tables and any kind of function that gives the player an item. This is especially important because we need to refactor how we use these can break and can place on tags and the hide flags portion of those as well using this new syntax. Now I'm not one to usually install the snapshots, especially just because there's lots of little bugs and unexpected behavior, and I like to wait till things like settle down and then they release the official next version of the game. But I'll tell you what, stupid me was having a really off day. I don't know what was wrong with me. I just woke up and decided up was down and left was right, and my data pack was accidentally deleted. Yeah, I kind of freaked out for a second there. I really should be making backups, and I did make a backup. It was just from a few weeks back, and so I had lost a lot of progress that we had made. I want to make it clear that I don't mean I lost a lot of progress like in the world. I didn't lose any of the structures that I had been building or anything like that. Rather, I deleted a lot of the JSON files for the data pack and function commands for the data pack as well. Since a lot of it was lost, and also the fact that these snapshots were going to force my hand into changing a lot of things anyway, I figured this was a good time to just update to the snapshots and start working with them there. So anyway, sorry, that's why this episode has been taking a while to come out. I've been busy updating things and fixing things in the data pack so far, but I think overall this is good to do it now, just to get it out of the way so we don't have to worry about it later on. So with that, now we can get on to the real thing that I want to talk about today, the red key room. Now, the red key room is always some kind of puzzle room. So there's 2 different kinds of puzzle rooms. This is one of them. This is a 3-word puzzle. One of the words is 4 letters long, 5 letters long, and then 6 letters long. And so you'll see this is the setup here. We'll have some player heads with custom textures on it, each with a letter of the alphabet. And then we have some player heads already up in the walls here. Those ones are constant. So if I switch to adventure mode, this is how it works. And I'll explain things in depth after I do the little demo here. So when I'm in adventure mode, usually I can't break things, but I can actually break these. They just pop right off there. Check that out. There we go. And so we have 7 different puzzle pieces and a smithing template. That's an issue that I'm going to fix. This is going away. Now with a 3-word puzzle room, there's usually a theme tying these 3 words together. So the theme for this example that I'm going to show you is colors. I just know that because I made the puzzle. Now, again, in adventure mode, I can't place blocks anywhere, but these ones do have a tag for deep slate tiles. So this word is actually yellow. This one is green, and this one is blue. Now, just to show some of the features of the game, usually when players are messing around with the heads and the letters, they'll probably place something in a different way that it's supposed to be. And in our game, we want them to be able to have an undo button of sorts. And so we can just simply knock those off again. Again, it's only the jungle wood ones, not the spruce ones. If I try to punch this one, or that one, it doesn't work. It's only these ones. And so they can see that those are a slightly different colored wood, so they're highlighted. So now if I punch in B, L, U, and then E, we can see the gate opens and I can access the key. Okay, so now let's take a look at how it works. And I'm gonna do my best to try to explain everything. So if you do have questions, just leave them down in the comments section and I'll try to go over them either in the comments or in the next video. First thing is the room structure itself. So we generate the room, and this structure holds another jigsaw block right here that looks for a pool under puzzles, and then red key, and then the 3 words. So every time we generate this room, we also grab some kind of puzzle for that room. And this is what a puzzle structure for that room looks like. I'm planning to make more. I only have 1 right now, but I'm gonna make more just extending off this way into the distance. Again, each of these have their own theme. So this one's theme is colors. So I've just named it colors here. And there's a couple of things going on here. So we have our words completely sorted out in their solution. Then we also have every block that the players can interact with over here, duplicated. So there's an L here, there's gonna be an L somewhere on this line. There's an E here, there's an E here as well. So these blocks here are cloned and just placed onto the floor, the little mud floor that is in the room, so the user or the player can punch them and pick them up and place them down. These ones on the wall are here as a check system to make sure that whatever is up on the deep slate wall in the room matches what's down here on this line. So when that room generates, it will run that jigsaw block and generate a puzzle here. And each of these commands that are generated with this puzzle will run their functions. So for every block that the player can't interact with, there's not much we need to do. Since they're in adventure mode, we know that it's safe already. They can't punch it or click it or interact with it in any sort of way. So all we need to do is just have, for each of these, an impulse command block that is always active, so it will trigger as soon as this structure is generated. And it just clones the head up into the slot where it needs to be. But for these blocks, it's a little trickier. So since we're in adventure mode, we can't punch them. So how do we do it? And we don't necessarily want to just have them be in survival as well. I want to avoid that at all costs, because once you start letting the player go into survival, things get a little dicey and tricky. You need to know when to put them in survival and when to take them back out. And I don't want to have to deal with any of that. So everything's done in adventure mode. But even in survival mode, if I was able to break this, you could see that there's a breaking animation. So it takes like a second or two to break these things, but the players are under the clock, okay? They're under pressure, they're stressed, they just want to punch the letter and have it pop off right away, immediately. So how do we get around that? Well, the sneaky solution is interaction entities. So these guys, I have hitboxes turned on right now, can be resized, and they basically detect when a player left clicks or right clicks them. If I do data get entity, and then I use the UUID of the interaction, you can see it has some basic data. Now, when I punch it, and I do /data get entity again, you'll see it actually has, if you can see this, has an additional field. It has attack. That wasn't there before, right? Well, that's where these repeating command blocks come in. Now, I do want to be careful with the amount of repeating command blocks that I have in the world. I don't want a bunch of commands executing every single tick. So that's where this redstone circuitry comes in play. All the repeating command blocks are set to needs redstone. So once the circuit turns off, all of these command blocks should turn off as well. And all these command blocks do, they're summoning interaction entities so that the user can punch them and we can detect that punch. So to do that, we're actually executing up at the block here. So this G, letter G, unless if there already is an interaction entity there. And if the block is a player head, then we want to summon an interaction and then resize it. And then we also give it a tag of alphabet. Because I'm already using interaction entities elsewhere in the game, and so I just want to make sure these are distinctly identified from the others that we use. So you could see if I was to, let me make sure the boxes are shown, if I was to power this bad boy, that summons an interaction entity here, and it only summons one. It doesn't continuously summon interaction entities, just one. And it's neat and nicely shaped to fit around the hitbox for the player head. So now we have a way to detect if the player is trying to punch this head, this letter, with this interaction entity. We just need to make sure that once they do, that this block is destroyed and the player head is dropped so that they can pick it up in their inventory. And that's what these two commands do. And so this first one looks for any interaction with our tag, right, that we specified, and then sees if it has some kind of data in the attack field. It doesn't matter who punched it, just as long as if there is something there. And then we run set block at this location, we change it to air, and we call destroy. And this will drop the loot table for the player head. And in our data pack under the Minecraft section, not our own custom section, but the Minecraft section. So this is where we can overwrite anything that currently exists in the game. Under loot tables, blocks, player head, most of this is just copied straight over from the actual game files. Really only adding this one function right here to set the can break component and can place on component. This is the important thing. So now that we've destroyed the block, we actually just need to kill the interaction entity as well. So same kind of setup here, execute at interaction with a tag and make sure that they have some kind of attacker. And if the block that it is positioned in is air, so the player just punched the interaction destroys the block that it was in, and now it's air, and so now it will kill itself. Okay, you with me so far? Because we're not done just yet. We still need a system to check to make sure that all the letters are in the correct spots and to open the gate when that happens. So that's what these three last repeating command blocks do. I have this demonstration over here set up so that we can see these three in action. Basically, each of these have execute if blocks command running in them. And this takes in three positional arguments. The first one, this blue one here, is a start location. The yellow one is an end location. And this green one, the third one here, is the start location of the condition to check against. So for our example, the blue coordinates here actually correspond to this block right here. And then the yellow coordinates correspond to this target block right here. So this is the start and this is the end, so everything in between here and there, it looks at, and then it says, okay, let me look at this green location, and it uses that as the start, again, for where it starts checking. So it basically mimics the blue coordinates right here, and so it will check these 4 blocks to see if they match with these 4 blocks. That's why this comparator is on right now, it's because the check has passed. If I was to change one of these blocks, you could see that it now suddenly fails. But if I make the same change for both sides, then it succeeds. And interesting thing, this actually checks for block data too. So if we have a furnace here and we put in an emerald ore into this top one, but leave this bottom one empty, you could see that it turns off. But as soon as we put an emerald ore into the furnace down here as well, our comparator turns back on. And that's important to us because all of the blocks we're using are player heads. They just have different block data inside of them, so for each letter. So that's how that works. And then to complete the circuit, we have each of these 3 repeating command blocks with their comparators pointing into a redstone torch that inverts the signal. So once all of these checks pass, it turns off all of these torches, which will turn off our line of redstone dust that generates here and triggers each repeating command block. And that will allow this torch to turn on, which is the thing that actually opens the gate. I don't see no redstone dust here, you say? So where's that at? Well, that actually needs to be generated last. And so I just have a command block here in another structure that I use to shuffle these heads that appear on the floor. It'd be kind of lame if you see the heads generate on the floor in the exact same order every time that you run the dungeon. And you see the same puzzle and the same kind of floor combination. Oh, I know which puzzle this is. So I have an additional component that is generated by this jigsaw block that shuffles the position of the letters on the floor. So that's what all these command blocks are doing. So I have these creeper heads to demonstrate that these 7 creeper heads represent the heads that are right here. You see there's 7 heads there and 7 creeper heads here. And each of these commands will just basically clone this guy over to somewhere in this area and then place an interaction entity where it clones that block so that the player can punch it and pick it up at the start of the puzzle. Again, this command block, this one right here, it's the only one that doesn't have a repeating command block with it. This one actually fills this line right here with redstone wire. Now there's 2 quirks that I ran into while working on this. One of them is with this command, the execute if blocks. When we place this room, this structure, we don't know what direction it will be facing. It could be facing north, south, east, or west, as jigsaw blocks do. And so when we execute if blocks, we can control where the start and end of our first check is, but the start of our to check against section is actually changed depending on which direction we're facing. Check this out. I have a demonstration over here. So in each of these commands, they are positioned relative to our row that we want to check and the row that we want to check against in the same manner. So this block is facing this way and it's, 1 block away and up from here. And same thing here. This block is facing this way, 1 block away and up a block from this line as well. And yet you'll notice that the coordinates here for the first one and the second one are the same. So -7, -1, -2, -1, -1. And then this third one, -7, 4, -1, is actually different from the third set of coordinates here. So we have, again, -7, -1, -1, -2, -1, -1, bleh, and then -2, 4, -1. And so what's going on with that, huh? Well, in my world here, you could see that the coordinate system based off of the structure, x-axis goes that way. So if I walk this way, I am heading in the positive x direction. And so that third coordinate section here, it needs to be the start of the corner with the smallest x or z value. So the minimum x or z. So in this case, the blue coordinate refers to this block here. The yellow coordinate refers to this block here. But the green coordinate refers to this block way over here, far away from the repeating command block. Whereas over here, blue one corresponds to this block again, and the same thing with the yellow coordinate, that's this block right here. But the green coordinates are actually right here. Okay, so you can see that that's working just as expected as well. So if I take out these 2 blocks, it still is okay. And then same thing over here, if I remove this tooth, and it's fine as well. So for the actual command blocks, I run a function that basically just picks one of those two variations depending on what way this command block is facing. And I had to do that for each of these bad boys, which was, yay, so much fun. The second gotcha, and this was a doozy. It took me a while to figure out what the heck was going on here. But even after that, still, sometimes, not sometimes, but all the time, the commands for going here in these repeating command blocks would say that the checks failed, the test failed for some reason, even though all the heads were correct down here and correct in up here as well. Everything should have passed and the gate should have been open, but all the checks were failing, and that's because these heads down here, when the game is running, are actually powered by this redstone dust here. This redstone dust is on, and it powers these dang things. So I just put in levers behind all of the walls here. So you have some levers behind there, and then you have some levers behind here that are powering the heads as soon as you place them down to where they need to be. So it was because the heads down in my key were powered, but the ones up here were not powered, the check was failing. With all those issues out of the way, I was able to start working on the second puzzle variation for the red key room. And this one is a crossword puzzle of sorts. So what happens here is the player has a puzzle here, and they'll have a couple of heads with letters, letter textures on the floor, just as the other one. And somewhere within the bounds of these glass blocks, I'll clean up this glass for the real thing. This room's still in development, as you can see. But yeah, they'll pick them up just as before, and then they need to place 4 player heads in the corners to spell out words that go across and down. And I have it designed this way so I can reuse my letter shuffle for each variant of the red key room. So I don't have to do extra work there, I can just reuse what I've already created. However, the key will obviously have to be different because it's checking for different things. But yeah, so that's everything. I'm kind of tired of talking. Hopefully that all made sense. I'm going to go ahead and create more shuffle structures so that we can get more variation here, and then more 3-letter puzzle structures. I have a whole spreadsheet of different words with a theme tied to them that I can use, and so I just need to build those out, and then I'll finish working on all of this crap over here as well. Oh man, so much to do, so much to do. That's it for now, so I hope you guys have a good day, take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!